So as we move on, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue to build on our discussions on growth, and our next panel, Unicorn Panel, Building Real Sustainable Businesses, will examine the art of scaling up while maintaining long-term viability. In this panel, our panelists are going to be diving into the strategies behind building unicorns that stand the test of time, focusing on real sustainable business models, and they shall share with us how they've scaled companies by balancing rapid growth with long-term value creation. Please join me as I welcome to the stage our panelists for the session. To begin, our moderator, Pankaj Naik, Managing Director and Co-Head, Digital and Technology at Avendus Capital. A round of applause, please, for Mr. Pankaj Naik. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a big round of applause. Let's hear you make some noise as we welcome our panelists to the stage. Please keep that applause going for Tarun Mehta, co-founder and CEO of Ather Energy. And I'd like to call on Amrit Acharya, co-founder and CEO of Zetwerk. A big hand, please, for Mr. Amrit Acharya. Mr. Naik, I'll hand the stage over to you, sir.
Thank you for being here, and congratulations. The big day is approaching for you on the capital market side, so congratulations on the journey. We'll have around half an hour. We'll straight get into the discussion. Both of you have built a phenomenal businesses over a period of time. You've gone through a lot of thick and thin, seen cycles, you've seen funding winters, you've seen intense competition, but you've reached a stage where you can say that this is the business that's going to last for another 50, 100 years, and obviously it'll continue to evolve. And I think the people here would love to understand some of the things that have gone into all the grit, all the hard work, and the decision making to reach here, and obviously the way ahead. So Tarun, I'll start with you. You are amongst the first movers in the EV scooter segment, and you scaled rapidly in a competitive market. Now, how did you, and this is a very classic question, a lot of our tech founders also face it, how did you manage the trade-off between the hyper growth and profitability? Because, in a segment where it looks like the sky is the limit, and one has to do the land grab, you sometimes end up making mistakes. But the right balance is something that you need to keep in mind. How did you manage that?
Yeah, so electric vehicles globally, like as we were building the business, one thing that we started observing when we would meet other auto folks and other EV businesses is that generally the challenge with EV companies has been that turning unit profitable, positive unit economics is a pretty difficult step because auto industry in general is a very mature industry. So unit economics is also a function of just sheer millions of engineering hours put in and the number of decades you put in behind it to get the right cost structure. And the temptation almost always is, especially when you live in Bangalore, in the midst of all startup, you're getting all the good advice that scale first, fix problems later, and all that good stuff. So the temptation everywhere across you is that let's just announce something massive, let's get a whole bunch of pre-orders, and we'll figure, right? Obviously, we'll get the money to make money later.
I've heard this before.
Yeah, yes. What I think happened in our case is after going through the product development journey, we'd kind of reached a point after the first maybe few quarters of realizing that, boss, EV that's a disaster. You will lose so much money on hardware, and there's no way for you to show. Luckily, good thing for us was there's no way for us to show easy metrics. Like there are no app downloads, there are no views, there's nothing of that, right? Every transaction is a high value transaction, and the lifetime value of the customer is generally the one scooter they'll buy from you.
That's right.
So we decided very early on that it is far better to take all the dollars you get and put it in quality and product, as opposed to chasing these random metrics of volume very early on until you turn unit profitable. Now, once you turn unit profitable, you can go crazy, but not before that. So we took, I think, a fairly different path compared to most tech startups in that sense. But I think that's probably the reason we did not die.
Oh, no, that's awesome. Coming to you, Amrit, you almost disrupted the B2B manufacturing space meaningfully. You started as a SaaS company and then pivoted it to current Avatar. You've done something which nobody has ever done before. And you also been through this journey, especially B2B has gone through the waves, right? There was a B2B 0.0 where nothing worked. Then there's 3-4 of you actually seem to be doing amazingly well. But when actually the first wave failed and you were doing it for the first time after that, how did you manage again that balance?
I think there is a saying that ignorance is bliss. So we had no idea what other people were doing, and we didn't really look at any other companies for inspiration also. Like our journey is very, unique to us. When we were looking to raise money, the first question you would often get is, you seem like smart people, why are you doing this business? It seemed unsexy from the outside, but my first job at ITC was to build a factory, and my co-founder, his family business was into manufacturing. So we had a lot of personal empathy to the problem we were solving. And of course, we didn't know all the answers on day one, but we had some, let's say, null hypothesis or hypothesis on what could work and what could not work. So our business, we have been able to thread that fine line between growth and profitability our entire existence. I would say I would say it starts with being gross margin positive. If you're gross margin positive, then it's a choice of how much you want to invest in fixed costs of R&D or sales, etc. And as a venture-backed company, you should invest a lot in sales and R&D, etc., which are more fixed in nature. But if your unit economics are positive, then it's just a matter of switching off that button that, okay, 1 year I will stop investing. Then automatically the entire business becomes profitable. But if your gross margins are not positive, then it becomes hard to bridge that gap in a 1 year, 2 year time period. So that's how we have approached the business, that do things you're familiar with, increase the surface area of the business incrementally. In fact, I would say the mistakes we have made as a company is when we have tried to go out of that. And I would say 2021 is a interesting time for us from that angle, because we relaxed our constraints. We just went into a lot of different areas which we now regret, some of them. But in a capital disciplined environment, I think that model works. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. As in, I think what I hear from both of you, that once you get the unit economics right, and that's important before you decide to kind of go aggressively. And the point also I take from you that rather than going in multiple pies too early, you probably kind of want to make sure that what you're focusing on, you get it right, despite the lure of the capital and the growth. Yeah, that's great. I think, and both of you also are in a way in industries where there are some sort of regulatory uncertainties. Tarun, you've been through that cycle quite a lot. When you're building something for a long term, when you're doing your business plans, when you're doing your budgets, you take certain assumptions with respect to this is my selling price, this is the subsidiary or post, pre, etc., and suddenly things change. How do you deal with it when you're especially building for a long term? Do you even think that I need to make this like profitable without subsidies, or that's integral part of it, or you build a projection in your mind thinking that this is X and it's going to be 0.5X in 2 years, and etc., etc.?
So I think in our experience, EV taxation has been still quite positive compared to ICE taxation. But EV subsidies have been a pretty volatile market, as they call it, right? Choppy or volatile market. So we tried, obviously, like every good team internally, of predicting how subsidies will play out. And we would typically be off by a factor of 2 to 3 times. So we were modeling 10,000 rupees subsidy, suddenly it became 60,000. We continued modeling 60,000 rupees subsidy, it became 20 and then became 5. So I think what we reached eventually conclusion is, and luckily we were operating that way, is that see, it seems like it's a waste of time to even predict subsidies. Obviously we'd love them if we get them, but we decided, actually for now a few years, we've been pricing ourselves always from a customer's perspective, not from a cost plus perspective, which I think has been, in fact, I think even subsidies are incorrectly modeled that way. They're never cost plus, they're never margin plus. They're really just filling in some gaps before your cost structures really catch up. So we always took a view that this is where this product should be long-term priced in the market. And on that trajectory, we are pricing this product here today. Now, if there is a lot of subsidy, great. We are going to make obnoxious amounts of margin on this, and that will fund other things. If there is no subsidy on this, we'll lose some money on this. But there is no way out anyways.
Yeah.
अगर subsidy, अगर pricing customer इतना ही pay करने वाला है, there's no point of me academically saying, no, then I'll jack up the price of 30,000 rupees and we'll see what customer buys. So take a very strong view. What is the right price for this product long term in the market? And then put a trajectory to it and price a product there. Subsidies fill a gap or become a minor issue later.
But you also make a lot of profit, then government will see and also reduce the subsidy.
It happened, no?
It
It happened for the
exactly.
industry.
Yeah.
So, but I think for whatever it is worth, subsidies played the right role, luckily for the industry at that time.
In the beginning.
In the beginning. Yeah. But I'm a big believer that the final price should only be dictated by customer.
Understood.
Not the BOM, not your cost, not your subsidies, not taxation.
Understood. Perfect, perfect. Amrit, you've seen, again, both sides. One is when things started going wrong between US and China, there was a lot of China plus one. And we started seeing a lot of, the India-US cross-border export, which benefited you. And now then Mr. Trump has come. There's a lot of talk about the tariffs and all that. So how are you dealing with those uncertainties? Middle of it, actually.
Yeah, I mean, just for context, like as a business, 50-60% of our revenue is China plus one related. These are customers who used to buy from China and now buying from India, and half of that is exports. And yeah, what I realized is, in addition to being an expert in manufacturing, we have to become an expert in geopolitics for our business long term. No, I think these are, as an entrepreneur, when you start a company, you are all in. You don't think of diversification, you don't think of hedging. You have one thesis which you have to make it work. Over a period of time, I think diversification, hedging, these are good traits to have. So for example, our international business was largely US-led. We have started adding Europe in the last year or so. Europe is uncorrelated with what's happening in US so far. It may have some correlation tomorrow. I think it's a decision I would not have taken today. I would have probably waited another 2-3 years before saying I'll open another new market. But that's one example of how we're thinking about it. Another example is we historically made in India and we shipped to US. But today I have supply in Vietnam, I have supply in Mexico, I have supply in US as well. In fact, 1/3 of our US fulfillment happens from US market itself.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Which is again insulated from tariffs. Now, these are all extra cost in the short term because opening a new market, I have to invest the same fixed infrastructure that I have to do in any other else. But I think these are the decisions which we had to prepone from a risk point of view. Again, I could have run the business as is for another year or two, maybe. But just thinking it a little bit longer term, these are trade-offs we felt comfortable taking, especially as a private company. We're trying to enjoy that as much as we can. But long term, I would say, yeah, I think some of the time-tested principles of risk management, hedging, I think these are applicable to any business. And it's just a matter of when you embrace it and when you kind of stay away. As far as subsidies go, in India, we are not part of PLI. So we operate in PLI industries like electronics, but none of that flows through our P&L. So in a way, we are fighting against subsidies by competing with companies who have PLI. And we are still winning business. So that, in a way, I would feel like strengthens the value proposition over a longer period of time, where we are able to compete without that. But yeah, that's the trade-off we make.
I'll add, I think, and it just hit me as he said this, both the hardware startups here are actually fighting against those incentives.
Yeah.
Because all the large companies have it and both the startups don't have them.
Okay, okay,
So,
okay, okay.
Yeah, I would
funnily, our
say
answer to
take
you
away
is,
the subsidies for everyone.
yeah, 100%.
That's lovely.
At
Actually,
this
no,
point, 100% a big believer. Subsidies of
No, it skews the business model because people start.
no,
It's like
so,
fertilizer,
sorry.
right?
No, I will also
Yeah.
acknowledge with EVs you did need them at the start, but today we have reached a stage
Yeah,
where
you don't need it.
they are they're a bit
No,
unbalanced.
no, I got it. Look, even like our favorite sector, IT services, also got tax benefits for a long time. Then at some point in time, obviously they withdrew and there was a hue and cry, but by then I think people had reached a stage where it actually reached equilibrium. Oh, awesome. I think personal transformation, it's a question to both of you, right? Tarun, I'll start with you. As you evolved from early stage founder to like a mature company CEO, what did kind of, were your own self-transformation that you had to do? What are the factors that played in that? What were the struggles? And did you have a feeling, is this the right thing for me, or et cetera, that come across at the feeling lonely at the top type of situations?
A slightly different challenge in our case. So both co-founders in our case, me and Swapnal, started as engineers. One was building the chassis, one was building the battery. So while we stopped designing the pieces ourselves, maybe after the first 2 years, I think for the longest time, both of us took our comfort food was going back and sitting with those teams all the time. So anytime there was a challenge, any part of the org, we would want to retreat back to it. And I think the biggest growth for us it has been a hard journey, has been finding other comforts in the organization. Product at one point, marketing at another point, sales eventually,
Yeah.
and operations, manufacturing. Because for the longest time, I think we realized this at one point, that we are trying to outsource those problems in the guise of saying, we are amazing entrepreneurs who are trying to bring really high quality talent and we are trying to empower our teams. See, we are not those people, who are trying to pick battles
Yeah,
everywhere.
No, I understand.
And then we recognize at some point, it's not that. It's actually us trying to avoid these areas because we don't know them. So the only solution is to eventually just embrace them and get into the weeds of it. That was hard because outside of engineering, honestly, none of this was a comfort for us at any point.
Yeah, no, I'll take up on that. And before I move to Amrit, how do you do that? Like, for example, there's an amazing marketing guy or a sales guy that you hire. How do you get him to respect you? Because you've never done this before. And this is exactly right. You said you want to empower him. At the same time, he has to respect you because you're a founder, CEO.
That is the actually hardest part because you get this imposter syndrome a lot.
Yeah.
And the first few months of meetings, you're constantly feeling, boss, like a regular Lala, I'm just walking to this meeting with my view on, how this creative should be, or, how we should structure dealer incentives. And all you're thinking is, ये बंदा सोच रहा है क्या, क्यों, भाई छोड़ दे हमारे पे, मेरे को आता है, 30 साल से कर रहा हूँ इंडस्ट्री में, ज्ञान मत दे आके. But the thing is, and which is why you wanted to run away also, because you know what, obviously I don't know, I should not interfere. But the reality is, the simple reality, at least in our business, has been, you have to go through that awkward phase, and you have to feel like, you want to go in, you want to understand everything, and then you want to develop your own thesis. Because the reality is, in most new businesses, anytime you start a new business, especially a new sector, something is changing everywhere.
Yep.
With EV, the entire distribution financial model has changed. The way you're marketing, are you doing product marketing or brand marketing? That's changed. The way you will run your supply chain has changed with the advent of electronics here.
Yep.
So if the founder refuses to put their DNA on how their company will run this part, then you will have mediocrity there. Not because the leaders are mediocre, but because this thing needed a new flavor which you refuse to give. So you have to go through those maybe 6 to 12 months of awkward phase. And eventually you will 99% come out of it earning enough respect with the teams.
Oh, lovely. No, that's amazing. Amrit, your experience.
I mean, I think, sorry, what is the question? Sorry.
The question is, the personal transformation,
Yeah.
you became startup to the mature company. And ancillary question was especially when you hire people who probably are supposed to know better than you, how do you get the respect?
No, I think the first one I would say has been challenging for me personally. Like the evolution of the role has changed dramatically. In the first year, the role was just raising money. I would say that was the most important role you could play as a founder CEO. Over the next 3-4 years, that has substantially evolved. Where when you run the business, you've now brought in a lot of people. You delegate, and in fact, I would say 80% of the things that are happening in the company, it's a FYI to me that okay, this has happened, and then you know, good or bad, you kind of discuss on that. But the counter to that is the remaining 20% are, let's say, problems which the company has not been able to solve. And they're often the worst problems. You know, something that gets upward delegated to the CEO is usually like stuff nobody wants to deal with. And then for me, a big part of the last 2 years has been to go back and find joy in all the positive things that are happening in the company, because my day is filled with just problem solving and firefighting things which are broken, right? So then I had to kind of, because nobody will proactively come and say, hey, I won this large order. They will say, hey, this customer is not working. Can you go and talk to him? You know.
No, absolutely.
Tarun, by the way, is a customer of ours. So hopefully a happy customer. So if you know something goes wrong, then you know we will step in at that point. But that's been honestly hard, just to seek joy, as what I could relate to what Tarun was saying, and things that excite you as a founder, reasons why you started the business. When you bring in new people, that same, I would say the best marriage is when both of you are in awe of each other. Like you are in awe of this professional, wow, how come they have done this for the last 20 years? And they're in awe of you, how come you have done this in the last 5 years? You know, so I think I like this Michael Jordan kind of quote where even though he's been a player for last 20 years, somebody in the stadium is watching him play for the first time.
Yeah.
So you always have to be on top of your game, especially with people who are bringing in as professionals. I would argue getting somebody who's very seasoned in their industry to come and join your business is harder than getting an investor to put money into your business, because they're risking a lot of professional career risk if they take a wrong decision. So yeah, it's dating in some shape or form.
No, I know.
And each of you are trying to impress the other person.
Yeah, no, and in relation to that, my next question was organization building, which you already answered a lot. But one of the things is that the people who've been with you for a long time, and some of them don't grow. But look, these guys have been with you, built it from the beginning. How do you make that transition? Because sometimes you have to take those tough decisions, but sometimes you find something different for them. But it's difficult decision on anybody's heart. How do you manage that? You've been in the business for a long time. You've seen a lot of them, I guess.
So in my experience, till now, there have been two kinds of situations where somebody's not grown with the role. One, that they've not grown with the role, but their ambition has grown. Now you've got a unfortunate fit.
Yeah, that's unfortunate problem.
That's now in the HR bucket. You work with them and you help them ease out, because that's not fixable. And they will need to find their own growth path. The other bucket is the more interesting one also, which is where they've not grown with the role. They know that. And generally, almost always, they are the most shining examples of the culture of the organization.
Yes.
And that requires work and conversation, but it's almost always there's a way forward, because, hey, listen, you can't do this any longer, but you are here for the company. You know that already. Maybe I just need to have this one chat with you to sort of close that with you. But listen, everybody is inspired by how true your cultural fit is, right? So finding those roles for them to land into is extremely beneficial for the org. Because if those folks stick around, if you don't have to push them out, then, like, very objectively, those departments' attrition rate is lower. Like, we looked at a few people where this happened. Those guys just become this magnet in that entire department, where people are like, this is like I'm understanding this company by the lens of seeing this person and their career, their happiness, their excitement, and that person continues to be excited 10, 12, 15 years later also. So you want to keep them in the org, and they're not difficult. They know that, listen, I can't do this, right? Like, I'm 30. Obviously, I'm not your CXO that you want in this situation. That's okay. That's cool. How can I help solve this problem? Those are some of the best
Oh, lovely. No, that's
people to
very
land up
insightful.
into.
Very insightful. Amrit, your examples.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like even in our case, we're starting to hit this point as we're touching 6 years old. A lot of our people are hitting that 5-year, 10-year. Some of them there is burnout. Some of them there is ambition. At least I'm proud of the fact that at our L1 level, people who used to report to the founders, like 90% of people who have left have started their own company, and it is something which hopefully doesn't compete with us, and it's something adjacent. And so they have our blessings, and they have. We are also excited to see them succeed because they bring in that entrepreneurial energy. In fact, I would say that considering the business we are in, we were, let's say, more hardware plus software kind of business. There are very few examples of that when we started. In fact, Ather was one of them. Side note, Tarun and I went to the same undergrad also. So there is something about IIT Madras there as well. So it's in a good way that what's happening. When people leave to start their own companies, that's obviously something you should encourage. But at the flip side, they're often their best people because they have that entrepreneurial energy. So you try and balance between having that lens of what Tarun said, I really relate to it, which is people who have ambition, but maybe have reached their ceiling in terms of what they could have achieved here. I think it's good to encourage them to kind of rediscover their path on their own again, start that 0 to 1 journey. 0 to 1 is often way, way harder than that 1 to 10 journey. So that's at least how I see it. And the people who you still feel are relevant in the org, you try and make the next 5 years work from that point onwards again. That you'd still want to retain these people. They still have that entrepreneurial energy. They're still scaling with the company. They're a true unicorn because such people are extremely rare. They have the cultural context of being with you for 5 years. That is impossible to hire.
Yeah.
So you try and approach that balance. It's only very subjective.
I totally get it. I mean, but I love that point about the culture. And, those are the people who take the company forward. Yeah. So you need to sometimes find something which is meaningful for them and not be like 0-1 kind of, decision making. Awesome. We are coming towards the end. So the last question is, if you have to do something which is not this, it's a personal question, what it would be?
So work on something else?
If it's not Ather, what else you would have been? How do you imagine a life if Ather was not in your life? What else you would be doing?
Actually, today I don't have any answers because what I thought were answers many years ago have all, passive time, I've come to believe they were all the wrong answers. Like I ultimately was trying to get into a PhD program. I ultimately was then, after that, full 180 degrees trying to get into an MBA program. Wow. Did not get into PhD, did not get into MBA. And retrospectively, I don't think I would have fit there. So, simple answer, I today don't know what I would be doing if not this.
Have you ever thought about it?
No, it's such a good job, man.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
There's so much leverage. You get to build products every day. There's like a full team where you can actually ask for a product and it starts coming up very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm
it's a good
sure
job.
you're loving it. It's just that I would be cricketer or something like that.
Nahi,
That. Amrit.
Yeah. No, I think our life is hard, but what makes it worthwhile is in a way you're fulfilling your dream. Like in my case, I have a childhood photo of me using Lego blocks to build wind turbines. Today I build wind turbines for a living for other companies. And in a way I'm fulfilling some life arc. So yeah, I mean, I have an answer to your question. Like I'm obsessed with space.
Oh.
When the prices become relatively affordable, I want to go on one of those
Lovely.
either Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos funded kind of spaceship. That's the next industry I want to get into at some point in time, where we partner with companies who are pioneering space exploration. We will play our part as a supplier of components to them. We do it in a very limited way today, but that's my kind of last mile. We'll open a factory in Mars at some point. Yeah.
Wonderful. I'm sure, both of you are extremely passionate about what you're doing. And I wish you all the best. And especially currently for the capital market journey. It's a new chapter in the life. So, and Amrit, for you also soon, that chapter is coming in your life as well. So thank you for, making it to this event. Really appreciate. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you for sharing your journey, insights, and perspectives with us. Please do stay on stage as I invite Mr. Ranu Vora, President TiE Mumbai, to present our eminent panelists with a token of appreciation. A round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome Mr. Vora to the stage. Thank you once again to our moderator, Mr. Pankaj Naik, and to Tarun Mehta and Amrit Acharya. Gentlemen, we appreciate that engaging conversation on building sustainable business models. Could we have another round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you, Mr. Acharya. Once again, a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, one more time for this very, very engaging and interesting panel discussion and our panelists. So, ladies and gentlemen, while we get a group photo taken right now, I would like to announce that we have a community catch-up for Indian startup community that's going to be starting in room 205A at 11 a.m. That's in about 8 minutes from now. So if you're interested, please head over to room 205A.